Hi there, we're here in the home studio of Erik Goddard. Erik, thanks for having us here.
Sure.
Now,
Nice to have you here.
Yeah. Now,
in the messy studio.
we should kind of give a little background here. You're a miniature artist who specializes in these structures, as we've talked about, as we see around here.
Yeah.
But one of your fortes is modern design,
Yeah.
which, coming from a lot of miniaturists out there, might be a new and maybe scary concept.
Sure.
A lot of people are focused on the more classic style. Can you give us any tips on how we can achieve a modern style, maybe using some examples here?
Sure. Well, the biggest thing about modern is keeping in mind that it's pretty much a clean aesthetic. You don't have a lot of frilly, fancy, curvy shapes, a lot of verticals and horizontals, complementary colors that are neutral. The times you do get into bold colors, it tends to interrupt the whole theme and harmony of the whole thing. And really, like I said before, a lot of the art that you see in modern is a picture of the outside, be that an urban landscape, a natural landscape, whatever. But that really, a large window is your piece of art. So let's look at this one here.
Yeah. Talking about the large window.
Yeah. So this window is a view of a New York scene in a certain neighborhood, and if you shut those, yes, you'd have a nice interior. But as open up, it gives you a real nice sort of that's your artwork, type thing.
Now, from a practical standpoint, where do you find large photos like that with the right perspective?
If I'm lucky to be in a certain area, I will take a picture of an environment. A lot of times, if I don't get the exact look and feel that I want, and I want a certain, upward-looking or a downward-looking angle like that, in particular, is really hard to find. I'll have to go for stock photos because unless you know somebody who lives on the 30th floor or the 60th floor of a building in an urban landscape, it can be pretty tough. But I take them wherever I can. Hotels, conference rooms, you name it.
Yeah, kind of just
Yes.
anywhere you happen to be can be
Yeah.
art, really. And I noticed another interesting aspect here, maybe in just this particular example, but the combination of the rough stone and the sleek wood.
Yes.
Is that a modern concept?
Well, you have a lot of older cities that used to have like mills, factories, warehouses, that kind of thing. That's kind of what this particular piece is kind of built upon. And where you had an old mill, for example, like in Minneapolis, we've got the lofts, where you've got like an old mill converted, made into condos, worth a lot of money, a lot more than the mill ever was. So that's where you have the old brick walls, the faded walls, the chipping stonework, bare outlets like that, and the natural wood floors that have been refurbished or maybe re-enhanced. And then the wall out on the back there is sort of built in modern times, so you can tell there's a little bit of old, a little bit of the new. You got the original floors, the original walls, then the new. And whoever built this, I'm just picturing this as like, this is their last day living in this piece. They sold it to the new owner, so they're sitting there with a bottle of wine, a couple of books, looking out that window for the last time. And obviously they had this made into sort of a Japanese theme. So
What a neat story behind
I
that.
don't know. All my pieces have backstories.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at another more modern example, a couple modern examples here. First of all, let's talk about this one up here. I mean, you mentioned the large window as kind of a natural piece of art.
Right.
Large windows in this one here.
Definitely. Well, this is one of the biggest things about modern is living up high in the clouds where you're off, in your own little world. You're looking out. This is obviously photographs in the background. And then one thing that people ask about is how do you get the photographs to look just so well? It's partly the photograph. Actually, that's about 5 photographs in there that are stitched together in a certain way. I do them both online and after printing. Print them on matte paper so they don't reflect, and then I light them with a cold outside light. I talked about that earlier. If you used a warm inside light like this, that would look a little less natural, a little bit more sun-baked than it does on cold and steel and glass like you see here. That's why I like the harsh light of this.
Which would be an LED, right?
This LED, yeah. It's all LEDs in here.
And you mentioned also the really neutral, clean color palette. I'm seeing a lot of white in there.
Yeah, it's not too much, clutter. You've got the simple chair, the fireplace, track lighting. This can be switched off. So if you do want to have that sort of just the natural look from outside, you would shut off these, both of these, and then you'd have sort of this is what it looks like if you're sitting in the room in daylight without those.
Yeah.
And also I use glass for the windows. There's an inside layer of windows here that you may not be able to tell are glass, but a lot of people would be tempted to use acrylic or plastic for that because it's easier. You can just cut them with scissors.
Sure.
But the difference between using that and using this is very stark because you're not going to notice the type of you get these little indentations with the glass or the plastic that you don't get with glass. Plus, you can clean glass. Anytime you try to clean acrylic, it just scratches it.
Sure.
So
do you have to get your glass specially cut then?
no, I cut it.
Okay.
And I use very thin microscope glass.
Okay.
So
Sure.
it makes a big difference. Those are little details that make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, the white walls are very important. Contrasted with maybe a simple painting to highlight the furniture you're using in there. But white, off-white is a very good color for modern. A lot of stainless steel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really, really sleek, straight out of New York kind of thing.
Definitely.
Now this...
Although this is straight out of Minneapolis for sure. That view out there is Minneapolis.
Sure, sure. Now this one here, this I think is really interesting because it looks like a clean modern gallery, but yet you have the contrast of the gilded frames. You know,
Yes.
it feels like a modern museum.
Well,
there.
that is a nice contrast, unintentional, I guess. I just happen to have those on hand. I would prefer there were maybe a more charcoal, metallic sort of frame look in here, but it's just what I had. So,
Sure,
sure. But I
That's
do
fair.
agree, and the way these lamps light up the frame really gives it that nice sparkle.
Yeah, definitely.
These are harsher, spotlights ahead, up here, that gives it a nice little detail on that wall. But down here, they're softer lights that don't have a focus like that. So a different type of look. And I make several of those. Some are 1-story, some are 2-story like this. Some are white walls like these. And then I do have a few that are like walnut beveled sort of walls.
Sure. And as we talked about before, choosing your lighting is almost as important as choosing your, materials or your paint color or something like that. It really sets the scene.
It changes everything. Yep.
Yeah. Now, we're on the topic of modern here. This one here is ultra modern. Let's talk about this one.
Yeah. Well, this would be a Chicago or New York type scene where you've got a one-room penthouse of some kind. I'm envisioning 45th floor at least. Not 40th, not 50th, but 45. And you've got a little bit of space, you've got just enough space to get by with a 2 or 3 partitioned type look. I call that staircase the spinal staircase because you'd have to be a little bit of a risk taker to go up that or down it without a railing. But here you have enough of a view out a window to give, once again, LEDs on the outside, lighting it to give it that nice cold steel, almost a dusk look in this case, which came out pretty nice. Large picture in the background, photo on matte, or with a matte spray. The color inside is an off-white, and
that neutral palette again, like we talked about. And obviously, the modern furniture, we have angular lines, steel, glass, and I love what you've done with the loft here. It's almost like a room within a room.
Yeah, it takes a small room, which I'll grant you has high ceilings, but even if you had lower ceilings than that, you could pull off getting a nice loft out of that, because you've got about 10 feet of space in the top loft there. If you were to put a desk up there, or a little study or something, or sleep your guests up there, if you don't want them downstairs with you. And the red couch, to add a nice contrast to the whole thing, I think you could use a large painting on that right wall, which I don't have in place right now, but actually, and this is where my interior design sort of crumbles down. I would have stuck just all gray colors in there and hope for the best. But someone said, you need something to really accent that and give it a nice edge. So that's where they said the red couch would be better than gray.
Well, it looks great.
So, yeah.
So just to kind of recap how we can achieve modern design.
Modern design, really, you want to get rid of, or keep out of the room all those fancy doily, frilly, paisley type things that you might think of in an earlier or a more classic design. Keep with the straight lines. All these lines are pretty much, except for the angle of the position of the stuff, it's all pretty much vertical and horizontal. Not to say grid, but more of a where the shape of the house blends into the background, and you really see the details, like the outside view. That's a big thing. I mean, if we didn't have a view here and it was just an interior of some kind, we could probably put paintings, or like this one is just paintings and stuff in there. There's no outside view, but that really does give you the contrast, I think.
Sure.
The dimension, the focus. So when you step into a room like this, that's the first thing that I see is the outside view.
Definitely focal point. Well, having a modern design in our miniatures can really open up a lot of windows, literally, for
Truly.
just different design and different ways to take your work.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing your tips.
Sure. Thank you.